Well, welcome back. Let's review what we've covered so far. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Everyone ends up somewhere, but few people end up somewhere on purpose. We also talked briefly about the three circles: your past experiences, your core values, and your gifts. What I want to do in this session is I want to focus in on past experiences. The good news is in Romans 8:28, we're told that God can use our past experiences. Paul said that we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him and have been called according to His purpose. What I love about this verse, in the original language, the word that's translated as all actually means all. That in all things, God works together for good. That means God works through the good things that happened in your life. God works through the things that didn't seem that significant. And God even works through the bad things to bring about good when we love Him and are called according to His purpose. In fact, when I think back through my life, I'm amazed at how God used different experiences to help prepare me for what I'm doing right now. In fact, one of the big things is I grew up in church, but was not a follower of Christ. I went to church almost every weekend, but yet I was not committed to Christ. And so the fact that I could be in church but not know Christ has really given me a heart to present the gospel in the church in a way that people who might be in church but don't know Christ come to know Christ. God used that past experience to prepare me to do what I'm doing today. Another thing you may not know is I was actually a magician growing up. That's no lie. I pulled rabbits out of hats and made scarves disappear and such. In fact, I was doing my first professional magic shows when I was 12 years old and did magic for quite some time. Well, little did I know that being up in front of people doing magic helped prepared me to be comfortable being up in front of people today. As you look back in my past, you can see how God used the different events to prepare me to do what I'm doing today. God used my past just as He'll use your past. So what I want to encourage you to do is to examine your past experiences, and we're going to create a timeline, kind of a big picture overview of your past. Now, as you recall, as we go through some of our past experiences, you're going to see how God might be preparing you, how He uses your past in your present to prepare you for your future. And I want to encourage you to be very open and honest about your past experiences. Especially, don't be afraid to think about and write down your past painful experiences. We often find that God will use some of the most difficult times to make us who He wants us to be. He'll show us through the difficult times how that often prepares us for our Chazown. So here's what you're going to need to get started. You're going to need your Chazown workbook, you'll need a pen, and then you'll need 4 colors of small sticky notes. There'll be some yellow ones, some pink ones, some blue ones, and some green ones. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk through this timeline process together, step by step. Then we'll pause after each step to let you work on your timeline. If you're ready, let's get started. First, think back on the people and events that have impacted your life the most. It's really important that you don't edit yourselves here. So go back as far as you can remember. From then all the way up to now, try to recall every key event or person in your life that has helped to shape you into who you are today. These can be the turning points where your life was headed in one direction, but turned as a result of a person or event. Look at the challenges you faced that have shaped you, as well as the opportunities in your past when God opened up a door. And remember, this includes everything, whether good, bad, or extremely painful. As a person or event pops in your mind, write that down on a yellow sticky note and place it on the table. Now, use a separate yellow sticky note for each person or event. If you're struggling to write down a particularly painful event, feel free to write it in a way that only you know what it means. You can even use code words if you want. Just don't ignore the pain of your past. This process will help you begin to see your own life's story. Although all of our lives have similarities and even overlap each other, God has given each of us a unique story. Take as much time as you need and try to capture everything that's significant in your story. Now we're going to do something a little different. Many people only see their Chazown begin to come into focus as they're recalling their most difficult experiences. Take a few moments and scan through all of the yellow sticky notes on your pages. Ask yourself, which of these things were painful or hurtful during the time when I was experiencing them? As you identify those painful things, transfer what you wrote on the original yellow sticky note to a pink sticky note and remove the yellow one. Keep in mind, while all of us have experienced challenges, not every challenge should go on a pink sticky note. Only transfer those people and events that were particularly painful in ways that have significantly impacted your life. Now that you have your pink sticky notes in place, we'll organize the different parts of your life, like chapters in a book. Look over all the notes you've arranged so far. You should be able to see distinct periods of your life, seasons where a lot of things were related to each other. Try to identify at least 3 chapters, but you won't want more than 6. You might even find that you want to move some of your sticky notes around to fit those chapters. Now, using your blue sticky notes, you're going to separate your chapters. Label each chapter with a note or a letter, whichever makes more sense to you, and put the blue sticky note in the space you left at the top margin above each chapter. All right, thanks for hanging in there with me. We're almost finished. Now, I want you to look back over all of these chapters. For each chapter in your life, ask yourself, what are the major life lessons that I learned during each chapter in my life? What are the major life lessons that I learned during each specific chapter of my life? Try to come up with at least one life lesson for each chapter. It's okay if you think of more than one. These life lessons don't have to come from your pink sticky notes or even from some major life event. Just identify something that you learned during that specific period of your life. Now, write down each life lesson on a green sticky note. If you start to feel stuck, look in your participants guide. You'll find some questions in there that should be able to help you. Each time you write a life lesson on a green sticky note, place that note in the space that you left along the bottom margin underneath the chapter it goes with. That's it. Congratulations. This was a huge step toward completing your first circle. When you've got your timeline finished, copy those lessons from your green sticky notes into the past experiences circle in your participant guide. All right, thanks for hanging in there with me. We're almost finished. Now, I want you to look back over all of these chapters. For each chapter in your life, ask yourself, what are the major life lessons that I learned during each chapter in my life? What are the major life lessons that I learned during each specific chapter of my life? Try to come up with at least one life lesson for each chapter. It's okay if you think of more than one. These life lessons don't have to come from your pink sticky notes or even from some major life event. Just identify something that you learned during that specific period of your life. Now, write down each life lesson on a green sticky note. If you start to feel stuck, look in your participants guide. You'll find some questions in there that should be able to help you. Each time you write a life lesson on a green sticky note, place that note in the space that you left along the bottom margin underneath the chapter it goes with. That's it. Congratulations. This was a huge step toward completing your first circle. When you've got your timeline finished, copy those lessons from your green sticky notes into the past experiences circle in your participant guide.
A couple of key experiences in my past that guided me toward my Chazown, I think would be, number one would be when I was separated from my wife. You know, when I was separated from my wife, just something happened to me and I wanted to chase after different things, but man, just God got a hold of me to where I knew that I needed to change something in my life.
Addiction is what has led me to my Chazown, to let me know that God was going to use me from the bad things I had been through or the bad things I experienced to help other people to overcome and to know that there is life after addiction.
My Chazown has a lot to do with leadership. And What I realized when looking through and reviewing my past experiences, that there were several experiences, both in high school and in college for me, that helped me to see that people were looking to me as a leader, even in situations where maybe I wasn't in a leadership role.
Well, two experiences that guided me to my Chazown. One really good experience and then other not so good. The first one was 4 years ago, I lost my father to cancer. And obviously that's a very painful experience, but it did guide me to my Chazown. The other experience is a really great experience, and that is the birth of my son, Camden. He's 2 years old now, but it seems like yesterday that we brought him home from the hospital.
I think a second experience would be the birth of my daughter. So those two key past experiences really pushed me toward that something was missing in my life.
Now, I know that was a lot to think about, and the odds are your mind is still spinning. There's a lot to think about, a lot to process. So let's think of this as our living timeline. In fact, as long as you still live, this timeline will grow and evolve with you. The good news is that we serve a God who is working in all things. He's taking our past events to shape us into who He wants us to be today so we can better glorify Him tomorrow. And as we listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit and examine it through the lens of our past experiences, I believe you're not going to be like a lot of people, because a lot of people end up somewhere by accident. But because you're seeking God, you're going to end up somewhere on purpose.